As hilarious as that music may sound, it is not how I want to kick off my podcast.
Welcome to the Michael Oldroyd Comedy Podcast. It's going to be so much fun when he makes humor of himself and the many things in New York City. Oh, and by the way, this is not the voice of Bruno.
Welcome to the Michael Oldroyd Comedy Podcast, a.k.a. the Droids Podcast. We are at episode 97. Unbelievable. We are approaching 100, and I'm going to have to figure out how to change the Roman numerals. I actually don't know how to do Roman numerals past 99, which is a very easy Google search, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I'm going to have to look that up because it means that content hath been created, you know? Speaking like that, happy Palm Sunday to those of you out there who celebrate. Just wanted to give a quick shout out. My roommate Jessica was raised Catholic, and my mom was raised Catholic, so today is one of those days where I'm being notified and, maybe eavesdropping on a little sermon action. No big deal, whatever. Good stuff. It's a big day. Special stuff going on all around. Obviously, we've got the coronavirus that's transpiring, which is not special, but there are good things to take away, and I bring it up because one of the things that's positive that's going around right now is supporting the healthcare employees on the front lines. And tonight, yesterday was the first day I noticed it, but they had, I heard yelling outside, and I opened up my windows, and at 7 p.m. everyone was out there cheering. So here, where I live, downtown in New York, you can actually hear people screaming and cheering on the healthcare workers at 7 p.m. because that's when they change shifts, or it's at least symbolic, something that I believe is actually going on around the world now to show our support for our heroes. The way I think of it is honestly with the catastrophe of the coronavirus that's going around right now, our modern day heroes that were like the firefighters during 9/11, currently they're the healthcare workers that are on the front lines that are exposing themselves and risking their own lives to save the lives of others and to try and comfort them as much as they can. So wanted to give them a shout out and acknowledgement. My grandfather spent his entire career as a physician, as a doctor, as a surgeon, and my dad's brother followed in my grandpa's footsteps. So, I've been fortunate, and I'm proud, I guess you could say. I don't know if you want to call it a humble brag, but I'm proud of my lineage. I'm proud of my grandpa. I'm proud to be his grandson and to to remember him for the service that he gave to us, right? And the generations before us. So the healthcare workers are champions, and we got to love them for it and appreciate it. So don't forget to say thanks. Thanks for your service. Frankly, that's an appropriate thing to say right now to them, not just military personnel that we're used to using those words for. So anyway, I'm excited to do episode, I believe it's 97. I actually have a special guest that we're going to get into here in a couple minutes. Before I do showcase my friend Austin Huff, who is our special guest today. He's been on multiple podcasts in the past. I did just want to touch on a couple things, and then we can let the listeners, let all of you enjoy the comedic light of my man Austin Huff, a.k.a. One of my teammates at the University of Missouri, who was also a fellow walk-on like myself. He's from Nashville, Tennessee. You guys who have listened to the podcast in the past, we share different parts of our story together over the years and just collaborate as friends, right? It's always fun catching up with him. In fact, sometimes, when we catch up over the phone, I'm like, hey, may as well just turn on the mic. You know what I mean? May as well turn on the mic and capture this, because there's a lot of fun things to capture within our conversations that I think is interesting, So hopefully you do as well. But before I get into that, I did want to just highlight a couple things, right? One, I had a very stimulating conversation with my buddy Chris Blackerby. Speaking of healthcare, him and his company, Incisive Consultants, led by him and his business partner, John Freeman, a.k.a. Jonatello Freeman, and Christopher John Blackerby. They are, helping healthcare on the EMR side of things. I think it's worth giving them a shout-out. But we had a great conversation last week just about how we as human beings really have the power at our disposal to do whatever we want. We really do have the power. We have the resources. We all have the tools. This day and age with technology and everything that's going on, we have the capability to pretty much just Google how to do anything, or YouTube a video tutorial of how to do anything. Whatever you want to do, you can. There literally are resources out there. We all know this. This is the only thing that separates us from doing the things that we want. It is just putting in the work, right? We all have time right now. So this coronavirus quarantine in some ways is it gives us the opportunity to realize that we do have time, right? And I know people have responsibilities, yada, 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 but there's really no excuse because we can all make time for doing the things that we're passionate about. If there's something that you want to do or have always wanted to do, you've got time right now. At least I'm going to make a bold and broad statement like that, but there is a way. So if you're going to not put in the work and you're wanting to be lazy, then that's on you. But we all have the capability. We all have the resources. It's just a matter of putting in the work. So the sky truly is the limit. That's a message of inspiration that I wanted to pass along, right? So if you immerse yourself in something that you're passionate about, you just get lost in it, right? And I'll give you an example. You may be thinking, Mike, what are you doing, right? Well, currently I've been writing songs for the last couple of weeks. I've been really enjoying the process of making music. Some of it is humorous, some of it is not, some of it has vocals to it, but I've been spitting out beats and different types of melodies. I wrote the coronavirus song that I mentioned a week ago, but I also wrote one after this last podcast. It's a comedy skit. You guys should check it out online. I think there's a couple titles that I haven't narrowed it down, but one is Perseverance Pays Off Sometimes, or Miklos Goes to Miami, a.k.a. Mike Goes to Miami. It's a comedy sketch. It reminded me, listening back to it in some ways, of an Adam Sandler skit that you might find in one of his CDs. But the difference between this is it's a skit to a melody, which is unique. It's not just a standalone skit by itself, and it's not a song by itself. It's literally like a series of scenes within a actual melody or song type format. So anyway, if you want to check out some of my sounds, check out my SoundCloud account. It's The Droid, TheDroyd, Y as in yes, The Droid, right? Not spelled with an I, but spelled with the correct spelling, which is a Y. And that's the same as my social media handle for everything online. So I do recommend it. I've made some songs that aren't comedy, and I'll put it there because I feel like, where am I going to broadcast like random music that I make that doesn't really fit my comedy brand, right? Where do I broadcast that? Well, SoundCloud, I think, is an appropriate place because it's all just sounds, and you can pick and choose. If you just want to listen to comedy stuff, you can figure out what's comedy and what's not. It's pretty easy to tell because one of one of the things entitled on my SoundCloud account is just a piece of me doing random stand-up talking about a woman that was masturbating in a hostel that I came across. That's obviously going to be more on the comedy format versus, an instrumental to a version of Love/Heaven, right? I think those two are going to be a little bit different. So, yeah, and I did create that, ironically, not knowing today was Palm Sunday, and today was the day that I released it on some different accounts. I created some other random private accounts so that I can just put the music out there and people can appreciate it without even knowing who created it. But nevertheless, guys, that is a little bit about where we are with the music stuff. I wanted to give you guys an inspirational quote that I was hanging up on my... I had this one hanging up in my dorm room in college, and at the time I remember it serving me well and being inspired by it. I remember very clearly it was a picture of a mountain, and the quote said, "An obstacle in the path of the weak is a stepping stone in the path of the strong." And what I've always thought about there is when obstacles arise in life, you can either use it to get ahead, or you can cry about it and let it stop you and hold you up. But some people are going to use that and get further ahead, and some people are going to allow it to be, what would some call it an obstacle or a hurdle, right? So use those to get ahead rather than to let them stop you, right? And that's a mindset that you have to have, a powerful mindset that you have to have. And in order to gain that, you got to work really hard, right? It's just like confidence is just like everything else. So be strong, focus on being strong, physically, mentally, spiritually. Put good things in the system, baby, and it'll. And if you do that, then when you come across things like obstacles, it'll be. A stepping stone rather than an obstacle. So anyway, yeah, I hope you guys are having a good time. The last thing I'll say before I go into this interview with my man Huff is I always talk about my roommate Jessica, who is with her parents. As you guys know, she's with her parents at this time, but she always has funny things that crack me up. The most recent thing that she did, right? She has a little bit of a spending problem, she admits, right? And as you guys know with the Amazon stuff in the past, she told me today that she was on Amazon and all of a sudden her cart was around $200, and then she saw this anti-aging LED red light face mask, and she put it in her cart as well, which brought it up to like $900. And she kind of paused, she said, for a moment, took a deep breath and said, okay, this is going to be okay, go with it. And she hit buy. And as soon as the transaction went through, she started panicking, she tells me, and was trying to figure out how to return it. I don't know, just a funny, just the entire story she told me was humorous in that way. But she said she got very lucky because they said they were either out of stock or somehow it was triggered as potential fraud, right? So they didn't let the transaction go through, and she was just so thankful that she wasn't, having to get stuck with that. So very funny chick, right? Today she watched she is Catholic, like I mentioned, and she watched a sermon, a live sermon on YouTube today from a priest delivering a sermon for Palm Sunday, and she calls me afterwards and tells me that she thought that the priest was attractive. She's like, I thought he was kind of cute, and I was like, send me the freaking link. I want to see who this guy is that you're attracted to all of a sudden, right? So she sends me the link, and the priest's name is Mike, right? He was a decent-looking guy, but I was cracking up. I watched a little bit of it. It was cool, And then I called her, and I was like, hey, I watched a little bit of the sermon you sent me. And she started yelling at me. She's like, why did you just watch a little bit? That's so disrespectful. You don't just show up to church and show up late and then leave early. You're being so rude and disrespectful. Okay, I'm sorry. I wanted to see, if this dude was like, you said he's good looking. I wanted to see, and I wanted to just kind of like get a feel for what the sermon was about. So I had to like promise her that I'll watch the entire sermon later. It seemed pretty cool though. I wish I could give you guys the information about it if you're interested, but if you are, just hit me up. Anyway, and speaking of Jessica, she asked me recently for Jacob Appel's email. She wants to contact him because apparently he's teaching some classes, or was teaching classes at Gotham Writers Workshop. So she was like, what's Jacob Appel's email again? I want to send him an email, and the three of us can maybe take a class from him. And if you guys are wondering, like, what the hell are you talking about, Mike? Who's Jacob Appel? He's a dude that has a Netflix documentary all about him and his life. And he's the guy that I tweeted how we had watched the documentary on him. I didn't tag him in the post or anything, but I said that my roommate Jessica is attracted to him because he's so intelligent. And he somehow saw that message and hit me up on my website saying, I'd love to speak with Jessica. And then Jessica gets all flattered by it, and she's like, Jacob Appel's interested in me. And I'm like, he doesn't know anything about you other than that you're a woman and that you said that you're attracted to him based on his intelligence. So you're flattered by that? Anyway, life is very interesting. I can tell you that much. Speaking of documentaries, I'm sure that many of you either have been watching or have watched or have heard about Tiger King. It's all over. It's trending on all of social media right now. I actually have not watched it. I just know the gist of what it's about. My roommate Jessica, obviously, I bring it up in context here because she watched the documentary. She was fascinated by it, couldn't stop watching. So for those of you who have seen it and you know that the main woman in this documentary is supposedly the documentary makes it look as if she is guilty of murdering her husband several years ago, and inheriting his fortune and manipulating his will and all this, yada, yada, yada. So Jessica wrote her a hate letter, and it was very, very intense. She read it to me, which I appreciate the spirit. It goes to show you that Jessica has, a spirit to intend to do good, right? The spirit of, wanting to, seek justice and things of these, I don't know if what's in that documentary, the documentary is true or not, right? That's one view. We don't know. We do know though that down in Florida they reopened this case. The actual law, some police officer or whatever is actually opening things back up because of this, because it looks so obvious, to actually dig in and pursue facts to find out if she actually did kill her husband. So it is interesting that the documentary triggered a legal investigation like that. We'll see what happens. Time will tell. Maybe I'll watch it, but if you guys have, hopefully you enjoyed the documentary, and maybe you'll feel inspired. Maybe you'll feel inspired to write a letter to somebody as a result. Or writing letters in general is cool. I told you guys before, I wrote Jim Carrey a letter thanking him for pursuing love versus fear, right? Because if he hadn't, then Jim Carrey, the man, the myth, the legend in the world of comedy would not have existed. And that comedic light wouldn't have been cast on all of us that were positively affected by his influence. So it's good to... It's good. Written word is good. And we'll talk a little bit more about that throughout the podcast. But anyway, that's that. So that's a little bit about all of that. Oh, one last thing. I wanted to do... I gave a shout out to my buddy Paul Simpson recently. He was a teammate of mine at Mizzou. And it was because I forget why, but somehow I was looking at his profile on Facebook, and I just noticed that his last several posts from over the last several months are only promoting other people, and I just thought that was really cool and unselfish, and it inspired me, and it fits his personality. He was always that type of teammate. He was always positive. He was always helping me become better, the rest of the team become better, unselfish. He was a great athlete. Just I can't say enough about somebody like Paul Simpson as a teammate. and I gave him a Facebook shout out. Just for fun, just letting him know that I recognized his unselfishness and how it matched our days in football and him as a teammate. Letting him know, I see you, bro, that type of thing, And it felt good to do that. It felt good to give him the love that he's given other people in a way. And it kind of inspired me, and then it made me think about other people that I wanted to give shout-outs to. And today I gave a shout-out to Coach Chad Lamison. It's on Facebook. I don't know if we're friends on Facebook, but it was very genuine. Coach Lamison has been just in my corner ever since I've known him. Such a great friend and coach, lifelong relationship. It was very meaningful to when I realized why not give him. I've always wanted to show him some love and appreciation, but I wanted to do it once I reached a higher level of success. For example, like say I won some award in comedy or something big, like at a presentation or something like that in entertainment or acting or something like that. I wanted to be able to give him a shout out, as a thank you and a genuine opportunity to kind of cast a light on him and as a form of my appreciation. But at the same time, it's kind of silly to maybe wait around when you can just do that now, and show the people like on Facebook that we're mutually friends with that know him and that can appreciate that. Why not now, right? So who knows? Maybe you guys can think about the people that have affected you positively, and maybe show them some love on social media if you want, or just think about it. Maybe write something down and send it to that person individually. I was kind of nervous to share that because I didn't want to embarrass him, or it's a little random. I realized, but I sent it to him, through a text first, just to make sure that he wouldn't be. That he'd be okay with it if I shared it publicly. So I do recommend maybe thinking about that. It's one of the things that helps create happiness is gratitude. So when you sit back and think about the people that you have to be thankful for, that have done things for you and help you get to where you are now, or that are helping you get through a hard time now, potentially, whatever it is, I do think that it's genuine, it's positive, and it's going to be something that's uplifting and that evokes a vibe of positivity. So with that said, I want to start this next segment. Speaking of positivity, Austin Huff has always been a ray of light in my life and in the lives of others. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and until next week, stay safe and enjoy yourselves, and make the most of this time. So thank you. Here we go. And one last time. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Okay. You know what? That's good. That works for me. So, okay. I think we're good, Austin. If you're good, how does the background look? Does it look pretty crappy to you, or?
Are you recording? Like, are you filming?
Right now I am, yeah. Is there anything that stands out as an eyesore to you? Besides me?
I was gonna say myself. This ratty ass beard that I've got.
I'm talking about my background over here. I'm thinking about myself.
Yeah, you look good.
Okay. Well, you look great too, Austin. I like the beard.
Yeah,
I've never seen.
You look great.
I've actually never seen you with facial hair before, so.
I've never seen myself with facial hair. That's why I figured now would be as good a time as ever to try.
Well, that's great. Look at you, man. That's fun. It's a lot of fun. So thank you for joining us. We're trying to do this podcast on Zoom today. We'll see how that all works out. But if you guys want to check out the audio, it may or may not be available by the time this comes out into the universe. But either way, I just wanted to catch up with my buddy Austin today. It's always a great opportunity to catch up with him because we have to schedule it because he's so busy. So when I do, I really got to make every second count, a.k.a. record it through every medium, video, audio. Because this is...
You just wasted like 15 seconds there.
It's very valuable stuff, you know? It's very valuable stuff. I'm taking loans out to be able to speak with you, Huff. You know?
Where's that money going to? Because I'm not seeing any of it.
Well, I'm taking loans out to produce this podcast and to, the money's going toward my rent here in New York. So, yeah.
How you been? How you been through coronavirus?
I'm actually doing pretty well. I appreciate you asking. I've been able to be productive, and luckily, I mean, me as an individual is doing just fine, doing well. It obviously sucks because there's a lot of people out there going through shit right now. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's it sucks being quarantined, but everyone I know, at least like in my family and friends, are all healthy, so I can't complain.
Yeah. Yep. That's true on my end as well. I do have a couple friends here in New York that I know of that have gotten it, but they are all safe and on their way to recovery or recovery.
I was gonna say you're living in a cesspool of it right now. I feel like New York's been hit hard.
Yeah. It's a terrible place to be, right? But luckily, I'm able to stay safe because my building is, I'm high up, humble brag. And
I'm in a penthouse. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to drop that.
Yeah, I mean, the hardest part is just waiting for the elevator to go all the way up and all the way down, No.
A lot of people say that coronavirus started from a guy eating a bat, but I'm pretty sure it started in the New York subway system.
Yeah.
Every gross and just global pandemic disease is just in those tunnels below New York.
Yeah, those rats, they're carriers of something, I have a few jokes about rats that I've written over the years, but I'll digress and not go into that material right now.
Who's your favorite rat all time?
Splinter, baby.
Okay, that's a good answer. That's a really good answer.
Yeah, I saw that you were posting about the Ninja Turtles recently, and I saw that your favorite Ninja Turtle is Michelangelo. Am I right?
You are correct. Yeah, the 30. Yeah, I want to say 30-year anniversary was just a couple days ago of
really?
the original movie being released, which is just nuts.
Too bad it wasn't the 32nd anniversary, right, Huff? Number 32?
Right.
Or 31, just to rotate the drops.
Either one. Well, I guess the next 2 years we've got covered.
Yeah. That's an inside joke. Those were our numbers in football at Mizzou. Anyway, so yeah.
No love for the rat at the end of The Departed. I feel like that's a pretty strong rat.
To be honest, I don't know if I've seen the full movie of Departed. That's Leo DiCaprio?
Yeah, Mike, how did you not? It's an Academy Award winner.
I may have seen it, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Scorsese.
I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Well, I know, like, there's not really a whole lot of free time these days, so maybe, I guess, when you can get around to it, you can pop it in and watch it.
Well, I'll see if I can take a break from reading all the content put out by KorkedBats,
Ooh, nice segue.
Yeah. And before I completely shoot myself in the foot by segueing, I'm not quite done with the Ninja Turtles, so I am excited. Okay. I am excited that Michelangelo is your favorite Ninja Turtle, considering that's one of my nicknames. Tell us why you like Michelangelo so much. Oh, by the way, since we're on Zoom, I'm going to show you something fun regarding Michelangelo.
Should I just? Oh, you're not wearing pants.
Yeah, just tell me why you like Michelangelo so much. Huh?
Oh, jeez.
I look like a real winner right there hitting my guitar with the nunchucks. Anyway, tell me why you like Michelangelo so much.
I would say, probably to me, he was always the funniest. I just always loved that he was the guy that was kind of breaking the tension. Because a lot of people like.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, by the way.
Say what?
I appreciate that, but keep going.
What?
I appreciate that he was the funniest,
No, Michelangelo was. A lot of people like Raphael.
Yeah.
Which I understand, but to me, he was such a diva. He was like the emo one of the bunch. Like, he was the guy who you'd be like, everyone would be ready to leave, and they'd be like, "Where's Raphael?" And you'd be like, "Oh, he's alone in his room listening to Dashboard Confessional." You know, like, that's...
Yeah.
Like, he's just...
He was the one, the Han Solo of the group.
Yeah, not even... Because, like, Han Solo at least was, like, cool. Like, Han Solo was more rebellious. Raphael was just, like... I don't know, just kind of like a downer.
Really? Yeah. You know,
he was a little too serious for me. Although I do love, The Color Red is good.
Hey, I mean, hey.
Yeah, there you go.
Baby Yoda.
But yeah, I would say Michelangelo, and then if I had to choose a second, I would go Donatello, just because he was the second funniest.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Well, I'll say a couple things about the Ninja Turtles. Raphael was my favorite growing up. I was a Raphael fan. I thought that those sais were pretty cool, or whatever they call them. You know?
He did have probably the coolest weapons.
I think
even cooler than Michelangelo's nunchucks.
I think Raphael was the biggest badass. You know, if I'm not mistaken, he was like the one that, like, if you really needed someone to get like that tough job done, Raphael would.
And I will say this, and I didn't give him enough credit. He was the alpha male of the group. That was without question. Like, if anyone had, like, if the Ninja Turtles were a hockey team, he would have a C on his chest. Like, that was
the captain.
Yeah, he was the leader. If there was a leader, he was the one. Now, granted, a leader of teenagers is not saying much because I mean, we all know how teenagers are.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
well, as I've gotten older, I like Michelangelo. One, because I think nunchucks are awesome. I do think nunchucks are pretty dank. You know.
Yeah, clearly, if you went on Odyssey.
You know, I've got all kinds of skills. You know.
Yeah.
Napoleon Dynamite. All right.
Was that Napoleon Dynamite?
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah.
To me, it sounded like Nick Cage.
Oh. Well, I appreciate that, but yeah, Michelangelo's cool, and then
Nick Dynamite.
I like where the origins of the names. You know, the Renaissance painters. I think that's pretty cool. Michelangelo.
Yeah, I do think it's funny. It's like Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, Raphael, and
Splinter. Yeah. Yeah. Splinter, the favorite rat that has a name named after.
Who named you, Splinter?
I mean, when I think Splinter, it's like Splinter is not a positive thing. You know, it's like
right.
It's like a sword.
If I was Splinter, I would go and legally change my name to like Shakespeare or something. You know?
Yeah. Is there any way I could get a name change here?
Yeah. Could you imagine seeing a giant rat walk into like the clowning clerk's office to get his name changed?
And you're like, wait. Especially if people recognized him, you're like, holy you're Splinter, right?
Yeah.
He's like,
hang on.
Yeah. He's got sunglasses on trying to...
Are you the weird guardian of those teenage turtles?
So, Leonardo...
Well, never mind. That was a dumb question. I was going to ask, do we know how Splinter came to be, but he just came to be the same way the turtles did, by falling into that ooze.
Well, Splinter never was a mutant. He discovered the turtles, apparently. I think.
Well, but he also he got big.
Oh, okay.
Because of the ooze.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
All right, so add this on your movies to watch. Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze.
Is that the one that you were talking about, or was that the first?
This was the sequel to the one I was talking about
Oh,
earlier.
okay. Well, I might have to do that. I want to see a new Ninja Turtles, even though I know they made some new ones, but I didn't quite like those that much.
Yeah, the problem I have with recreating movies like that is they cut costs so much by just going, I say cut costs because it's still expensive, but they just go CGI with everything. Whereas, like, one of the reasons why the actual Ninja Turtles was so good, and I feel this way about the original Jurassic Park too, the reason it was so good was because they actually built, like, the Ninja Turtles were Jim Henson created Muppets, or not Muppets, but bodysuits
costumes
for these characters.
Yeah.
And with the original Jurassic Park, they actually built animatronic dinosaurs, and that's what made it so scary.
Yeah.
And with CGI nowadays,
it's not believable, right?
And I feel like anyone that grew up like in our age range or older, remembers life before CGI. So now that CGI is so prevalent in movies, and it has gotten really good over the years, but you can still tell what's real and what's fake when it comes to in terms of like monsters or characters and things like that. Like the reboot of the Ninja Turtles they did recently, it was just too much. It was, I don't know.
I agree.
They relied way too much on CGI, and it just wasn't entertaining in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't know if Megan Fox is April. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Have you ever seen Megan Fox's thumbs?
Are you gonna put her down, Huff?
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna comment.
I have seen them. Yeah, I have seen them.
But if you Google just Megan Fox thumbs, that's all I think about now is when I see her here.
Hey, I can look past the thumbs, bro.
Yeah, so can I.
I don't think I'd be staring at her thumbs. You know what I mean?
Well, I would be. What are those?
Yeah. So I will say this: the cool thing about the names with the Ninja Turtles, correct me if I'm wrong here, but all the names were Renaissance painters except Donatello. Was Donatello a Renaissance painter?
Donatello was a fashion designer. No, that's a Versace joke.
Sounds like something Bruno would say. Oh, Donatello was a fashion designer.
Donatello is he was a sculptor. He was a sculptor of the Renaissance.
Oh, okay.
So that counts. But he does have the name that sounds like he would be like an explorer. You know? Like you have like Magellan, Fernando de Soto, and then like Donatello sounds like he would be like hanging out with those guys and be like, I explored Fiji the other day.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I explored New Zealand. What did you do, Donatello? He's like, well, I explored. There's a nice bodega around the corner from my apartment. Yeah. That I explored. You know, like he would be like the worst of the explorers.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about Donatello? A couple things that I like also in addition to that. One, I also have this style thing. I have it as one long bamboo stick, you know, so I forget what it's called, but I was learning that a little bit when I was living in Kansas City. I was learning how to use the Donatello stick is what I call it. There's actually a name for it, and they kept on saying stop.
That sounds like a normal thing that most people our age would do.
Exactly. I'm a very normal guy. You know? But
I wish I could have just walked by like a storefront window and looked in, like just glanced in and like seen you working with this stick with an instructor.
Hey, if you go to my website www.michaeloldroyd.com, there are some pictures of me in a karate suit with my Donatello stick.
Wait, what were the first three letters of that website?
www.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I got it written down here.
But here's an interesting fact about the name Donatello. It means gift from God, and Donatello wears the color purple, which purple, there's symbolism. Purple is a color of royalty.
Right.
So Donatello is a secret boss, you know.
So are you saying Donatello? Is he should we give the seat? Should we give the seat to him?
Oh, you know what? When it comes to the word C, I'm gonna have to say I don't think any of them are C. I think every one of them is like an equal in its own unique right and way. Like we haven't really focused on Leonardo, but that dude is a badass. I mean, that dude's got the samurai swords. I mean, being able to whip those babies out. I mean.
Whew. I know he's got two of them too. Like imagine having to just having to tote those things around.
Yeah, it's definitely. I would
cut myself without question.
If you were him by accident.
If we started our own Ninja Turtles and ninja humans, I guess. And we had just ninjas in that sense. If we just became ninjas and I was given in charge of the swords, there's no doubt in my mind I would cut myself before, like, within the first 15 minutes.
Well, I think that's case in point that we can't discount his credentials, right?
Right.
What a boss Leonardo is. So, you know what's interesting is that my last company, the name was Sagacious Consultants, as you know.
Oh yeah.
Me and there was a couple of us that kind of developed the Ninja Turtle. We became the Ninja Turtles because one of the guys on the team, his middle name was Raphael. I went by Michelangelo. We had a dude named John, and I renamed him Jonatello.
Jonatello, that's nice.
And then Chris Blackerby, you know him. He was the one that was the perfect fit for Leonardo. So we.
Blackerby didn't have any attachment to the name. They just gave him that name.
Well, the first 3 turtles originated, and there was one left, but we could, for a long time on the sales team, there wasn't anyone that like really fit. I don't know how to explain it, even though we had a sales team.
No, I got it. You gotta have that Leonardo aura about you,
and just that X factor, right? And
right.
One day I was like, maybe we don't have to look inside the sales team. And I was looking, and Chris was there, and it's like, yo, Chris Blackerby, and they're like, oh my gosh, perfect. So the Turtles originated right then and there, man.
Did you guys fight crime?
We fought. You want to talk about segues? This is the best segue of all. We fought for healthcare, my friend.
Oh,
and,
nice.
You know, speaking of coronavirus, we did.
It's not as exciting as what the Ninja Turtles did, like on the surface, but it's probably more important.
Right now, it's very important.
Yeah. I just imagine you guys like in
costumes.
Yeah, in costumes, like fighting.
That's fun. You know, speaking of that, and I don't want to talk about. Now I feel like I got this like balance in my head. I'm like, all right, I'm talking too much about myself. I can feel it starting to like. There's like lights kind of like going off. Like, all right, maybe flip it back over to Huff.
Just check my eyelids. If my eyelids start to close, then you know, like you're talking about yourself a little bit too much.
Okay, well, let's flip it back to you, Huff. So, let's talk about KorkedBats. So we had that segue earlier. We had that segue, and I know you've been putting in a lot of work. We talked about this before on my podcast, but I love to see how hard you're working. You're making a lot of funny content. It's just constant output, which let's talk about that, man. I mean, yeah, you're welcome. It's a compliment. It's great. That's the hardest part when it comes to the creation of anything is the actual doing, right? And you're a faucet right now. KorkedBats is a faucet of humor. So talk to us about how you do that, how your rhythm, you know, how do you get into rhythm with that? Like maybe on a daily and weekly schedule. How do you plan for it? How do you execute it? And then how do you put it out into the universe?
Yeah, well, it's I guess it's coined as a comedic sports blog, but obviously there's no sports right now. However, with that said, it's also a pop culture site as well, like talks movies and TV shows, and really I just kind of make it anything that I find entertaining and funny. And you know, like right now, like there's a lot of like Tiger King content on the site because obviously everyone's over Joe Exotic and that whole Netflix series, and so I just try and play to where find where everyone is and meet them there with, you know, my own kind of spin and humor towards it. And now that there's no sports, it makes it a little bit harder to come up with content, but I see that challenge and I welcome it. Like I kind of get excited a little bit about how, like, okay, how are we gonna come up with content for the next few I think months until sports come back. So
Guys, you have to check out this website. I'm going to spell it because,
it's corked with a K, too.
Yeah,
A lot of people are trying to check out corked with a C, bats.com, but it's, our goal is to one day have little kids misspell the word corked in their spelling bees nationwide. Like, that's the goal.
Yeah,
one day.
Well, hey, you're on your way. You're taking it one step at a time.
If I can just eliminate one kid from a spelling bee, then I think my job is done. Your word is corked, and he's like Kork, and they're like, sorry, son, you're out.
Well,
that's my goal.
As Coach Pinkel would say to you with your goals, here's the good news: we can fix it, okay? And we're taking it one step at a time. That's what we got. We got to zone in, okay? We got to zone in.
Are you 100% committed?
Yeah. Can we talk? Have we talked about that before? About that annual meeting?
Oh yeah.
We've talked about that on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's the only interaction
we ever
had with old GP. It was always encouraging to know that the head coach would know, the head coach knew your name.
Yeah.
But then it was discouraging to know that he checked his notes right before saying.
He'd look at his stack and be, "Oh, Austin, thanks for coming in."
Yeah,
today.
he'd go, hey, come on in, welcome to. Why don't you have a seat?
Yeah.
Austin, have a seat, Austin.
Yeah.
How you been, man? I've been good, coach. And then it's literally, honestly, I couldn't have gone through a drive-through faster than I could have that meeting with Coach Pinkel.
And it requires effort. You got to take off class. You got to schedule to get out of class, come over to the facilities, drive, find a parking spot.
You planned your whole day around it. I never in my life have I ever planned my whole day around a 5-minute interval. The Kentucky Derby thinks that Gary Pinkel's meetings were short. With walk-ons, I should say. Because there were guys obviously the scholarship guys, the Chase Daniels, the Macklins of the world. Yeah. Those guys, they probably met with him for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that we've talked about this before, but it's fun because you never know who's listening in for the first time, and some people don't listen to every episode. So, if anyone's heard this before, apologies, but, it's always fun to talk about. I remember hearing, Andy Lloyd tell me once that in his meeting with Coach Pinkel, Coach Pinkel had a stack of just blank papers or whatever on the desk, and he goes, "So Andy, what's your vertical these days?" And Andy's like 26 or whatever it was, And Coach Pinkel just took a blank white sheet of paper, nothing, no context, just wrote the numbers 26, Just wrote the number 26.
And it probably took up the whole page, so then he had to go to the next page.
No, that was all the notes that he took, right?
Yeah.
No context. It's what are you even going to know that means later?
Yeah, and then he asked him if he's 100% committed to the program.
Exactly. I will say though, my meeting with Coach Pinkel was absolutely that my first year, but the second year I had been working my butt off and making an impression and whatever, and I actually had rather than a 30-second, it was a 35-second meeting.
Wow.
It was a little more personal, which was nice, and he was paying attention. He told me that if I had a chance, it would be that spring, So he said, "This is it, We just had 4 receivers graduate. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" I was like, "Yes, sir. I do see that."
Your vertical and wrote it down on a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah, he saw my vertical. He was like, "Oh, what? I'm going to take back what I just said right there. It's just no longer your chance. We're going to have to." No, we're actually going to have to let you go, Mike. It's
He's like, just comparing verticals here between yours and Andy Lloyd's. Looks like we're going to have to let you go, Mike. I'm sorry.
It's like, I'm not employed, though. I'm not a scholarship athlete. How do you let me go?
Job.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to give your locker to somebody else.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to let somebody else come and give 60 to 80 hours of their week to the football program for no cost whatsoever. whatsoever.
Yeah. We're going to have to let somebody else come in here and be an intern for no pay, where their job is to get the shit kicked out of them every week until they're pretty much, But hey, I don't regret a second of it. It's funny. It's always funny. It's hard to not let our conversation drift toward this because it's such a big part of our past. I feel that way at least, and in our relationship as well, right? But you're probably thinking to yourself, all right, Mike, could we move on to something else?
I haven't thought about football in 14 years.
Really?
No, I'm kidding. I think about it every now and then, but it's...
I think about it every day, Huff. I think about it every day. So, for those of you that aren't watching, I have a football and I'm playing catch with myself right now.
Yeah, Mike's ready to go out into the field. Mike's gonna be the
Uncle Rico.
That GIF of what is it? The Simpsons characters just playing frisbee by himself in the park. That's gonna be Mike just throwing a football back and forth and running and going to get it.
Or Uncle Rico, right? Uncle Rico.
Yeah, Uncle Rico too. Yeah.
If I could just go back to 19.
out in the middle of the field, just be throwing footballs and filming yourself.
If I could just go back to 1982, I'd take state.
Coach would have put me in fourth quarter. We would have won state, no doubt about it.
It's so funny because in 2002 we actually did go to the state championship, and I was a sophomore at the time, and they almost put me in the game when we were down.
I actually had the exact same experience.
Did you really?
Yeah, 2002. Our team won state, and they had a package, an offensive package built specifically for sophomores to get on the field.
Yeah.
That we ran every game up until state.
Yeah.
And we had a looking ladder designed to go to me. The pitch was to go to me.
Yeah.
And then just run down the sidelines. And at halftime, our offensive coordinator was it was a guy named Les Steckel, and he was the offensive coordinator for the Titans in Super Bowl 34 against the Rams.
Wow.
Yeah, so he had been around all these different NFL coaching jobs, which is probably why we won state, because he was such a good offensive-minded coach, obviously. We were so head and shoulders above every other high school offensively, and he implemented this package, and the state title game, it's halftime, and I want to say it's maybe 7-0. We won 10-7 was the final.
Wow.
So it was a very close game.
Yeah.
A very defensive game too. And at halftime, they're having their meeting, and he's like, "Where's Huff?" I'm like sophomore. I'm like freaking out. I just raise my hand, and he goes, "Where's Huff?" He goes, "We're gonna be running whatever the play was called." Whatever is the hook and ladder play or whatever, I don't know. And he was like, "We're going to be running that in the here in the second half, so be ready." Be ready. And I was like, okay, my heart's racing a mile a minute.
Yeah.
It's like, and then the entire second half, I'm just like, all right, it's coming. And every time we'd get the ball, my heart would race even more. And long story short, we never ran play.
Oh man.
So, but it was fun. But yeah, that's funny that you and I were both sophomores on our
and we almost got in the state championship game. One of the receivers coach was starting to look at me because I made a big impact as a receiver on JV that year, and they brought me up to varsity a couple times. I got to do special teams and whatnot, and they put me in a couple times for random stuff. But obviously we were playing Kearney, by the way, and Tommy Saunders was on the team, and on Kearney he had a big game that game, and that's probably the reason that Mizzou wanted to give him the opportunity to be an invited walk-on. He had a punt return for a touchdown. I think he also scored another reception for a touchdown. It was a really big deal. And Brock Christopher was there. The
craziest thing about Tommy's punt return is that every 10 yards he would drop and just do 15 push-ups. It's like, wow, this guy's incredible.
Yeah, man, there it is. The light of your humor, Huff. I love it, man. Freaking, it's a Donatello. Your sense of humor is a Donatello, you know. So,
I appreciate that.
yeah, it is. Is mine? I'm just kidding.
You're my Casey Jones of humor.
What's that? What's the Casey Jones?
Mike, how are we gonna have a whole conversation about Ninja Turtles and you don't know Casey Jones?
I'm sorry, I'm at a loss, but I'm very excited to learn about this Casey Jones.
Did you see the movie Ninja Turtles?
I've seen them all, I think, at one point.
All right, add this to the list of movies you gotta see. Departed. What was it? What was the second one?
Ninja Turtles 1 and 2.
Oh yeah, Ninja Turtles: Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah.
So really, yeah, both Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
You don't need to watch the third one. The third one sucks. They go to Asia or something, and it's not worth watching.
Yeah.
But Casey Jones was the guy with the hockey mask, and he would whack people with, I think, a cricket bat, which didn't really make sense because he had the hockey mask. Or maybe it was a hockey stick, a goalie stick. And he would that was his weapon, and he helped the Ninja Turtles defeat the Foot Clan at different times.
So it's a positive. You're giving me a compliment.
Yeah. I'm saying you should probably put on a hockey mask to hide that face.
Hey, I'll take it, guys. Dang it. I'll take it. That's fun. So, we were talking about, and I know that we got a hard stop coming up here in a couple minutes, and really this is just to catch up. And I was gonna ask, unless I'm forgetting any of the points that we needed to readdress there, or if I'm leaving anything out, but I did want to ask about your process for writing, if you'd be willing to share some of that with us, or how you actually go about generating the content. You talked about what it's about, but what do you do to either get motivated, or how do you go about the actual getting in the momentum of writing and whatnot?
Well, I just love to create, for one. I just love making things and sharing it with others, whether it be written pieces or videos. Like I just dropped a video literally right before we came on here, and I just like to do videos, photoshopped images, written articles, as I already said. But yeah, like it's just, I don't know. I kind of I see whenever I see like other people create things, it inspires me to create things. So I guess that's where that's what like gives me the motivation, is being able to say like, okay, well, what you created was awesome. I'm going to create something now and show. And so so I'll write, with my writing per se, that is literally, I'll just find something that I think is interesting or shareable, and then I'll give my own take on it. Because, I mean, it's one thing to just share something. I like to enhance sharing it with giving my own spin on it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's awesome, Huff. That's fun. That makes a lot of sense. That's great. I don't really have a follow-up question to that. I feel good right now. I'm ready to take a nap. That was good. I feel like we did what we needed to do. I mean, not that we have to end right this second. I'm just saying that's how I feel. I don't feel compelled to go anywhere from there. Do you have any thoughts or questions? I'm sure as soon as we start talking about something that you bring up, it'll drift us right into a new direction. So, what do you?
Does Ratatouille rank anywhere on your top rats list?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I say not for me. Any rat in a kitchen, I can't get behind. I think Ratatouille is one of the worst.
That's very prejudiced of you, Huff. You know?
Yeah, maybe it is. But yeah, like if you're asking, do I think rats should be cooks? No, I don't, and I will die by that on that take.
Well, I would say, literally, from a literal standpoint, I'm going to say I almost agree with you. Not quite.
I will say one rat I can't get behind is Ratto, Gonzo's friend from the Muppets.
I don't think I've seen that.
Oh my gosh, Mike! How have you not? Have I made a reference yet that you've understood? Gary Pinkle.
Hey, Ninja Turtles, you know, Splinter.
Well, yeah, but you didn't get Casey Jones.
Oh shoot! Oh,
Ratto.
Say that again.
Ratto is the rat that was friends with Gonzo in the Muppets.
Yeah.
He's like in every Muppets movie.
Okay. Well.
All right. Well, do you have any questions for me about that?
How are your parents doing? Are they staying safe right now?
Yeah. They're everyone in my world is thankfully has been able to steer clear of it for now. I say for now because it's probably a chance that almost, probably a lot of people we know at one point contracted, but yeah. But yeah, for now everything's good.
They're in Tennessee, right?
They are just south of Nashville.
That's cool. Well, hello to Austin's parents if you're listening.
Hey, Mom.
You guys raised a great son. So. What? I'm being serious.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Just the way you were looking longingly in my eyes.
Hey, Huff, I love you. I haven't said it, so I have to say it on the podcast. I haven't said it yet today, so
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you. Oh yeah. Hey, I didn't mean to make you yearn for it. I have to say one of the things that one of my favorite memories of you, and I don't know if I can articulate this in a way that gives it justice. It probably can't. It probably can't live up to the way it's in my memory. But we were all running 7-on-7 once, and that's one of the things. It was extra. That's not a required thing, but it's still required if you're committed to the program. So for the walk-ons that, are already, they have all these required workouts and whatnot for us to continue. What I'm trying to say is Austin and I and some of the others were absolutely 100% committed because we'd go to these non-coach mandated type 7-on-7 workouts. I think it was like Tuesdays and Thursdays during certain weeks of the year. And of course the quarterbacks and receivers would be there, maybe a snapper. And I'll never forget watching, we were marching, Chase Daniel and a lot of the starters, they were doing their normal thing, just marching down the field, 7-on-7 with the defensive backs, so both the specialists could practice. And Huff was just, as we were marching down the field, Huff was just methodically clapping, and it was like he was marching in a way. Like he was just methodically clapping and marching, saying, "Guys, that was great. That was really great stuff right there. Fantastic." But it was like in that like autopilot mindset, if that makes sense. Autopilot mindset of positivity and humor at the same time. When that light is on for the humor, and it's just kind of like, it's that like when Will Ferrell is on stage, you just start laughing because he kind of has that vibe.
Yeah, I figured there was no coaches there. They weren't allowed to be there because of NCAA rules. So I was like, well, I'll just assume the role of the coach, and instill the and do the things that coaches do.
Yeah, yeah.
which is pretty much just clapping and saying, "Good job, guys."
Or if they drop the ball, no problem. We're gonna get this next one.
yeah, right. That's the way because obviously I wasn't gonna see the field as a running back at my size, so I was like, well, you know what, maybe fake coaching is the route I should take.
Oh man, That's awesome that you remember that as well. That we can share that memory together. That's fun, Huff. I'll never forget that. So, speaking of never forgetting, I did find some studies. Somebody sent me some studies I talked about on my last podcast, so I don't need to go into it. But someone I know studied CTE thoroughly in college, or they got their master's in healthcare. And in my last podcast, I talked about a lot of therapies and things that one can do. So I was kind of putting that out there for anybody who, I mean, a lot of football players, obviously, but anyone who is at risk, you know. So I felt good about being able to share something positive to kind of inspire, like saying that you can take some ownership of, of maybe doing some preventative things and whatnot. So, yeah.
Mike, I'm starting to think that you have CTE.
I think I do, Huff. I think I might. Some people would not laugh at that and they might feel sad, but I think it's possible, you know. Are you making a joke or are you serious?
Yes, I was making a joke.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope that it is. I hope that's all it is a joke. But anyway, I like to maximize my time with you, so I'm not going to let you go for another 6 minutes when you have your heart stopped. Anything else new aside from quarantining, focusing on creating comedy content? Is there any pieces that you've created lately that you really like, or anything that you've seen about the quarantine that has made you laugh or made you feel better? Is there anything positive?
Yeah, the video I actually dropped right before we started this is called Quarantine Scaries, and I think it's funny. It's a short little video that I think many of us can relate to, of going through quarantine right now, and it's funny. And I'm not saying that because I think it's funny. I showed it to my wife, who's probably my toughest critic, and she chuckled, so that made me feel really good.
Well,
about it.
That's interesting that you say that, because the girl that I live with, she's also my toughest critic. You know,
you need that. You need people in your world to tell you when something sucks, because it's hard to find.
Well, that's interesting that Jessica tells me everything sucks that I do.
Yeah, well, it's like my wife is perfect for that kind of thing. So she probably keeps me from posting a lot of stuff that just isn't funny or
really
is stupid. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Jessica tries to. I just don't listen to her. Jessica and my dad, you know.
Right. Yeah. It's important to kind of surround yourself with people who'll be honest and not just people that'll puff your chest all the time.
Hey.
So that's what I find.
You don't want people to puff your chest, do you?
Yes, a pun on my name.
Yeah, it's a pun. It's a double whammy right there.
Like that would be one where I'd be like, yeah, let's not use that joke.
Oh, really? You don't like that? Because I personally thought it was pretty good. Huffle puff. All right, okay.
It's low-hanging fruit, as they would.
Really?
Well,
I'm sorry. I you got to grab the fruit wherever it is. You know what I mean? Don't miss.
Not if it's on the ground. That's kind of gross, especially nowadays with this in this day and age of COVID-19 that we're living in.
Oh man, I can't have you on my podcast anymore because you just make me look bad by being so funny, Huff. Huff's like I'm never.
Now's as good a time as any to plug KorkedBats.com.
Yeah, KorkedBats.com, and I can tell that Huff is never. No wonder why he never runs anything by me before he posts it, because I laugh at everything he says.
Yeah. See, you would be a bad person to run everything by, because you'd be like, "Yeah, it's great. Let's go. Let's roll with it."
Well, I think part of humor too.
I can't do it. No, to be honest, I can't do it to Waldman either.
He laughs at everything.
Same way. Everything.
And that goes into that. Actually, sorry if I'm cutting you off. That goes into part of what I think being a comedian is. You have something on your side if people like you, right? So, likability is important because, like someone like Adam Sandler, right? Like if you like him, all of a sudden you think he's hilarious, which I do. And there's some people that don't like him and they think he's not funny. It's like, I think liking liking somebody is important. You know, like I have some people that know me and they say I'm their favorite comedian of all time. You know, and I'm like, it's because they like me, they know me. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a fun thing. Somehow I just got to get the world to know me better, so maybe some of them will like me, I guess. And if some of them like me.
Well, and that's where it's important to, like, the people that like you are always going to like you.
Yeah.
You gotta find a way to hit the people that don't like you and find a way to convert them.
Yeah.
And you do so by not like appeasing the people that already like you. That makes sense.
So you're saying don't give the people that like you love?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying don't turn to them for their approval of whether or not what you're doing is good.
Oh, because you're saying they're gonna like you no matter what.
They're gonna say yes to anything that you do because they already like you.
That's probably what I've been doing wrong with this entire 14-year journey of doing comedy.
It's like, I wish I would have known.
I mean, people have been trying to tell me. Danny Religer has been telling me for years about how to like modify my strategy with Twitter. You know, and he's obviously. And
Twitter's an important thing too, because that's the only inside window a lot of people have to look at you as, I don't want to say a brand because that's such a
it's fine, you know,
easy term, but I mean that's essentially what it is. You're a brand, you know, because you're not you in the comedy world. You're your own entity. So,
well, look at that. You just gave me a nice little piece of advice to think about. So. As we exit, and I know you have a hard stop here, so I want to respect that. And Austin, thank you so much for joining. As always, thanks for taking the time to just catch up with me, hang out. We're doing this on Zoom. Always fun. Check him out, guys. KorkedBats.com.
Watch those movies, okay?
Yeah. Oh, your movies or both? The Ninja Turtles?
No, watch mine over and over.
Of course.
But no, watch Departed and both Ninja Turtles.
Awesome. All right. We're out. Thanks, number 32, Austin Huff. Have a great week, guys. Stay safe and, freaking do some stuff that you like.
See you, Mike. Thanks, man.
See ya, Huff. Thank you, bro. Love you.
Love you, too.
Oh, you heard it. Awesome. That's what I like to hear.
Connected on the phone. All right, I'll see you, dude.
All right, see you, man.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. By the way, am I the only one who's horny?